This week, we're prisoners in our own minds. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Porteous, and joining me today, a man who would stop at nothing, Sweet Chauncey Kovacs from the internet.
Stop at nothing for what?
Well, you know, at nothing. For revenge, maybe? We'll see if that dish is served cold, because we are on the road to Deadpool, Wolverine. We finished up all of our Ryan Reynolds films. We're just about a little over halfway through our Hugh Jackman stuff at this point. So far, so good.
Yeah, last week was a bummer, but yeah.
Well, you know, listen, it's a bummer for you. It wasn't the best. But hey, listen, I figured since, you know, Sean was down in the dumps last week because he had to deal with the musical and everything, we need to bring him back up with something a little bit light and jaunty and everything, so we've chosen Prisoners.
Well, we haven't. You did.
Well, I did. It's true.
And I will say, I've seen Prisoners before we needed to watch it for this week. And I was a fan previously. Like, I like this movie, although it is dark.
Yeah, it's a little, and we'll get into all of that good stuff and whatnot. But you know, this is we've had let's see, bad robot. We had robot fighting Hugh Jackman, bad dad Hugh Jackman, singing Hugh Jackman, and now man on the edge Hugh Jackman. Mm-hmm. So you know, that guy's got he's got some decent range. He got overall.
Some range for sure.
And of course, this is directed by future Hollywood superstar Denis Villeneuve. This is the first movie of his that I saw.
Me too.
And I did see it in theaters and stuff, and that was really on the back of, frankly, all of its stars in this movie, because boy, oh boy, did they got a bunch.
They do. And they are lousy with talented people in this movie, which I totally forgot. People keep showing up.
Yeah.
Forgot he was in it. Forgot she was in it. Forgot he was in it.
Every turn, there's like, oh no, oh, that's right. And before, like, I don't want to say before they were all huge stars, but everyone's, you know, meteoric rise in this has been fantastic. So
this is the movie where I realized that Paul Dano could act.
Well, yeah, I mean, previously, what do we have to work from? His quiet character in Little Miss Sunshine.
That's the other movie, right? But I don't think I'd even seen Little Miss Sunshine yet.
I had a little problem with Little Miss Sunshine, and it wasn't the movie itself. It was how a buddy of mine just kept talking about it. He kept going, Ooh. Little Miss Sunshine, and I was just like, okay. Seems odd that you know, we're in our 20s or whatever when that movie comes out, and he's like, seems weird that would be what you would glom onto. And like, he saw it like 4 or 5 times in the theater.
Oh, wow. So it got him.
I was just like, dude, what now? And then when I finally watched it, I was like, this? Drug-addled grandpa? That's what you watched? And you were like, this is the best in the world? Steve Carell, you want to just wring his neck the entire time? Paulo Dano, same. I that movie frustrated the crap out of me, but like, it was nice. But Paul Dano had not just been big enough yet to where when he was in this movie, it was like, you didn't really know who he was.
Right.
Because it was just, as far as we were concerned, that was just an actual dude you picked up off the street. That's how it looked when I was there. Before we get into all that, though, we do want to say a giant thank you to the people that support this show over at patreon.com. Those people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and, of course, they get to vote on where this year's show is going. And I got to say, with pretty much, I would say, almost 70% of the entire vote here has gone for our vote. Let's go over those real fast. We have Meryl Streep genre movies, Burt Reynolds on Wheels, and headliner Matthew Broderick, which is steampiling away with 68%. So it looks like we're going to be going with those. And if you'd like to figure out what those Matthew Broderick movies are, or if you'd like to suggest one, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level. Get all of the bonus perks and stuff like that. Just imagine if this show went away on Monday. We weren't there. What would you do? If you could throw $1 in to make that come back to you, would you do it? Patreon.com/HMP. And let's be honest, on this Monday, this is the best part. This is the best part of your Monday right here, right now. You want to know why? Because we're not talking about the world. We're talking about the stupid movies.
I got to tell you, I just recently had that happen where my favorite podcast is no longer a podcast. and it is a huge bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. There are ones that just kind of disappear and go away. And if you want to make sure that we stick around here, patreon.com/HMP, review us on iTunes, or drop us an email at halfasspod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We got a good little community over there at the Patreon. It's very nice. Well, let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plot line for Prisoners. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. When Keller Dover's daughter and her friend go missing, he takes matters into his own hands as the police pursue multiple leads and the pressure mounts. This is written by Aaron Gurdetsky. He Prisoners was on the blacklist of Hollywood scripts and stuff for a good while. He later on would do Contraband with your boy Marky Mark. He did a Papillon remake and some TV. This is directed by Denis Villeneuve, who's this was his first big American picture. He would go on to direct Enemy, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, and both Dunes Volume 1 and 2, starring Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Melissa Leo, Maria Bello, Terrence Howard, Dylan Minnette, Dave DeSmulsion, and Paul Dano. A murderer's row of actors.
Embarrassment of riches. I do have to correct you on one thing. Enemy is before this movie.
Is it just before?
Yes.
I always forget.
Because the only reason why Jake Gyllenhaal's in this movie, and he didn't have to audition for it because he had just worked with Denis Villeneuve on Enemy. And so he's like, oh, you don't have to, you do not need to audition. Please be in my movie.
Real fast, have you seen Enemy?
No.
It's different.
I figured as much. It's probably more experimental than anything else. It's one of those movies that never comes up.
Yeah.
So that I figured it was probably something like that. You know, it's that first movie that a lot of great auteurs have where you're like, I like every movie they've made so far except for their first one because that's basically just like a calling card for them.
Yeah, just trying to kind of figure it all out. I never saw Incendies. I think that was like his first big one that came even before Enemy and stuff. Never saw that. Heard good things about it, but don't know nothing. But this was the first thing that got me on Villeneuve's trail because obviously, you know, we got Hugh Jackman, who's one of the biggest actors in Hollywood right now. Jake Gyllenhaal has been a star for quite some time at this point, but his star is certainly on the rise, you know, more and more so even at this point. And then, you know, Viola Davis and Melissa Leo, while they've been actors for a while, are really starting to kind of get into their own at this point and stuff as well. So like everybody is just hitting that stride in their career right at this point.
Melissa Leo is one of those actors that she's in literally everything, and I don't know it's the same person from movie to movie to movie. And, you know, she's in The Fighter, she's in this, she's in a couple other things, because I had to look her up last night because I was like, that lady looks very familiar to me, but I don't know where I know her from.
She's terrific in Kevin Smith's Red State. She's so good in that.
Yeah, she's everywhere, man. She's in everything, and she looks different in every single thing she does. Like, even when you see, like, if you were to see a photo of her that's like her photo on IMDb, she looks nothing like the character she plays in this movie.
Yeah, she's like a regular looking lady and stuff. And then when you see her, like she's one of those great actors that will dirty it up real good. Mm-hmm. She does not care. Like, that is not
She'll
part of her.
She'll actually make herself look ugly on purpose. Yeah.
Not part of her process to be like, well, I've got to look good for the camera. No, this girl, she doubles down. She's like, I want to look disgusting, make my teeth gross, make me look bad. She does not care. And she leans into that with that character. But frankly, I think that just by watching her performances and all these things, I feel like so much of that informs her character. I think that if she's not in all that stuff, she's not, you know, doing that. And I think that she needs that to kind of live in that stuff. And it absolutely works. But boy, does she lean into it. Good stuff. So yeah.
What brought you to this movie? Like, what made you choose this movie to watch this week? Is it because it was the darkest thing you could think of that Hugh Jackman's been in?
Not necessarily that it was the darkest, but like I really did. This was, you know, we'd seen Hugh Jackman as we kind of talked about in previous films and a lot of other stuff up to this point. We'd seen a lot of, you know, range and everything, and I knew he was a good enough actor. And one of the reasons I was kind of compelled to watch this is obviously it's not an X-Men thing, and you're like, okay, let's see what he's got. And my God, he is just killing it. He's so good, and that's what we're definitely seeing amongst all of these Hugh Jackman performances and everything. The man makes no half measures. He goes in all the way with these roles, and you believe what he's putting out here. While he is still Hugh Jackman, super handsome man and everything, they dirty it up a little bit. He slums it down a little bit, and with the bad enough facial hair and a bad haircut to where you could buy him being, this guy.
Yeah. He looks like somebody who has the job he has. He's a handyman basically in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks like that. That's the thing that I take away from this movie, having seen it for a second time now, is everything in this movie is ugly. Literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
The set dressing is, the people are, you've got to go out of your way to make Maria Bello look like a homely lady, and they do it.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to make you look like you are literally going through this right now, because that's how you'd look if you were going through your child being kidnapped.
Right. The only person in this movie who hasn't really uglied himself up is Gyllenhaal. He's the only one who's like, you know what, I'm still gonna be handsome.
But he is making so many interesting acting choices that you get beyond the fact that he's good looking, because he gives himself a Tourette's tick.
He does.
One.
He's got the blinking.
So he definitely leans into that properly well. He and again, he's such an underrated actor. I think he moves differently than he normally does in other stuff.
Yeah.
All of the choices for his tattoos and his Mason ring and stuff like that, him. Which I was I knew that before, just by watching it. I'm just I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal put all this bull crap together. And then you read the trivia, and it's yes, he in fact did do that.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, there's no way someone gave him this direction. He chose all this stuff. And I got to tell you, when it's that scene between Gyllenhaal and Paul Dano, when they're together in the same room, it's like they're having an actor's weird choices off.
Yeah.
Where Dano has clearly chosen something. I'm not exactly sure where his inspiration came from to play this character, but he's not playing the character oh, I'm going to be creepy. He's just creepy. And it's and Gyllenhaal's got, his dumb facial tics and the top buttoned, and his tattoo that goes just over the collar of his shirt that's buttoned all the way to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the strangest acting performances. It's like they're trying to outdo one another with their craziness. Now, with all of that being said, I really like them in this movie, both of them. I think they're both great.
Oh, but then make no mistake, they're doing some wild stuff.
Yes, they both are. I also think that there's only one big problem I have with this movie. Everything else, I love the performances. I think that the pacing of this movie, while slow at times, they could definitely have cut this down 15, 20 minutes and we wouldn't have lost anything.
I agree.
But the big problem I have with this movie is there is no way in hell that Keller Dover, the Hugh Jackman character, is friends with the Birches. There is no way. That character would be racist as hell. He's a prepper. I don't know a single prepper that isn't a little bit racist. He's kind of I've got to do all this myself. He's the kind of person that would have stormed the Capitol a couple of years ago. That is who this character is.
I don't know about that.
It absolutely is, man. That is where all of those people went to. Yes.
Listen, he just seems like a regular kind of middle class guy, because when you look at their neighborhood and everything, this is just, it's a regular, I think that's clearly what they were kind of going for, is this is just a regular neighborhood in anywhere's USA. It's specifically Philadelphia.
This is lower middle class, specifically in Conyers, Georgia, because that's where this movie takes place, in Conyers, Georgia, which is Conyers is where they shot a lot of The Walking Dead.
But the great part is like it looks like it. It looks like exactly what it's supposed to look like, and it's like, oh man, where this
ugly.
is.
It's also ugly, and it's like the set decoration is so ugly, and there's things where like you can kind of tell. I don't know if it's the director or the decorator or the production designer who made this choice, but when you're in the Dover's house, they are clearly they are telling you these people don't care about aesthetics, because there's things like a lamp on top of a television. Mm-hmm. Who does that? Nobody does that. Like that is a choice. That is whoever made that decision made the decision of these folks don't care.
Well, Sean, you can't put a lamp on a flat screen television these days. What's wrong with you, you silly goose? Come on.
Well, what I mean, you know what I mean with what I'm saying here, and that is something that happens again and again in the Dover house, where everything about the Dover house, there's nothing that is done for aesthetics. It is all utilitarian. What they're doing in that house, and that is a choice. That is a definite choice.
Oh yeah,
but even lower middle class people care about something in their home. Even lower middle class people do. But to get back to my point, there is no way Keller Dover is friends with Terrence Howard and Viola Davis, because they are close friends. There is no way.
Well, I will say this: you don't at least the chemistry between him and Terrence Howard, you don't really buy, because Terrence Howard is now, thank God, Terrence Howard just decided to turn it down for a film. And I think that's the only way that it kind of works, is that he's not, at a billion degrees and everything. But at the same time, too, unfortunately, what that does is it neuters the character, and then the character is kind of a nothing. And I think
next time, baby.
Yeah. Because his character, when brought into the fold and everything, should have far more reactions than he's having, and should have, far more questions and things, instead of just kind of really going along with it all. He doesn't seem like that would be what that character would do. It feels like that character would be a snitch, hardcore, because that guy looks like his wife runs everything, right? So he would, like, the second that he found out that this kid was in, that he held him up in this, abandoned house or whatever, he'd have told his wife for sure.
Yes.
And then all of that would have been gone, because that Terrence Howard character ain't hiding that secret, because he's not a big enough man to do it, because at least what the movie's portraying him as, I would say.
Agreed. Totally agree.
But
that is my biggest problem with the movie, is that they're not hanging out on weekends together. The kids don't go back and forth between houses. No, that is not true. That it would never have happened. It's the only thing I have a problem with, because I will tell you, the thing that I love about this movie is that when you're watching it for the first time, at least for me, you get to the middle of the second act of that movie, and I thought to myself the first time I saw it, well, there's no way that this movie is going to have a satisfying ending, because they're screwed either way. You can't have Paul Dano's character do it, but you also can't you can't have him be completely innocent. You can't do both things with this character. It would never work.
Yeah, because you can't have him be innocent, because then he's you already question his motives and everything, because I think, and now let's talk about this for a second, because as a parent,
hold on, let me finish my thought here. So the fact that they're able to pull this off, the fact that they do it and it's so satisfying, that is really the secret to this movie. Because if this movie's third act, if their final act in this movie is something that is lesser than, like the two movies that you saw this weekend, that you're a little disappointed. This movie's secret sauce is that the third act of this movie is the best part of this movie, and it is killer, and it is so well. It's like watching a clock work. That's how good it is. Mm-hmm. And to the point where it's like they wrote the ending first, Like they came up with the ending first. That's how good it is.
I just thought about this analogy. It's like the movie's like you said, the first kind of 3/4 almost is us winding that watch.
Yeah.
And then the rest is is letting it go and then showing us, what we've kind of been ratcheting up this entire time.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. I finished my point.
No, it's okay. But so the part with Keller and everything that, like, I think, as a parent, someone kidnaps your child, you will do anything.
Yes.
And again, I come to this from a non-parent perspective, so I have only a modicum of any sort of idea. And so I even know that even with my tiny little bit of, anything that I could imagine, can't be anywhere close to what an actual parent would feel. I don't want to, I've never taken away that from parents and going like, well, I have a dog, I know what that's like. No, I do not. So it's just, if you put yourself in that character's position and everything, there's nothing that he does that you don't feel like you probably wouldn't be, want to do anyways. But even so, like, you are watching him do this, and there are parts where you're just like, you understand what he's doing, you get why he's going after it, but you know that even he's questioning what he's doing. And like that to me just shows that this movie's like far smarter and everything. He doesn't want to be, he just wants his daughter. He wants the information that he needs, and he's willing to be a horrible human being to get it. And then we, even as an audience, are starting to question, does this guy know? And like, and again, brilliant Paul Dano move with how he's, everything he's doing and how this character is portrayed is that we don't really know. Like you said, the whole time we're just like, is he mentally disturbed? Is he mentally challenged? Is he just pure evil? What is it? And we never really land on anything. And I think that's the best way to go about it as well.
Well, but they do. The movie does make a decision. And that's what I really like about it, is that that top isn't spinning and then they cut to black. Like they really do. They tell you who the guy is, which I think is great.
Well, eventually, yeah. Eventually they do. But while the thing is going on, you are still, as, if you're in Keller's position as his character, because that's how we're meant to be at this point. We have to go like, we're in his position. What would we do in this particular situation? And with the information that he's got, he does what I think most, at least fathers would end up doing.
Yes, I could see myself doing almost everything that he does in this movie, except for the hammer scene. The hammer scene I could not do.
Which, by the way,
I could do everything else.
So let's talk about the hammer scene. They had done that scene several times, and the last time Villeneuve told Jackman, go ballistic, just go absolutely nuts. This is the take. Just do it. And he went full bore. And everyone was just amazed that Dano didn't flinch. Dano did not flinch a touch. It's kind of, when you go back and watch, and to know that this is, it's a oneer. He smashes that sink and everything, and the hammer in the wall, one take. And it was the last one they did. Wow. It was the last one he went bananas on, and it's the one they used.
Wow.
And you could just, also watch Terrence Howard in that scene as well. Because Terrence Howard, he's half in, half out, it looks like. Part of him is just like, he's like, act. And the other part's going, holy shit, what's going on? Like, you could tell, he's really trying to act
about my math equations.
My gosh. The Terrence Howard math stuff is the best in the world. For those of you that don't know, Terrence Howard went on Joe Rogan and just started talking like an absolute crazy person. Then, God bless him, Joe Rogan had him back on with another kind of, crazy smart scientist guy to go on with Terrence Howard, who was trying to go on in Terrence Howard's very nice defense and everything and be very charitable to him and just like, listen, this guy's an idiot. He tried to be so nice to him and give him so many ways out and just be like, well, maybe 1 + 1 doesn't equal, something other than 2. Because that's what his contention was. That was the main, his first thing was 1 + 1 = 3 or something. And I'm like, in what kind of quantifiable way? In a Terrence Howard kind of way. That's how. But he's like, listen, Terrence, you got all these things here, and like, I'm very happy for you that you want to expand your mind and get into the higher. Like, he's being so gentle, he's being so nice, but at the same time, he's just going, "This is stupid."
Yeah.
God bless you, Terrence Howard. Please do more of the science stuff and less of the movie stuff. I think these days, because I want you in the field, in the hard sciences field, not this liberal arts. I don't know that that's for you. Hard science, that's your category.
So, what do you think he's dealing with? Is he bipolar? Is he dealing with schizophrenia? What do you think it actually is with him?
That's a real good question. I think he was a guy who got that success like real early. Hustle and Flow was just kind of a phenomenon. It kind of came out of nowhere. He was just like this new star, he had a little something to him. And frankly, it was probably the something that was in that character that we all kind of saw. But then I don't know. I think it's like the ego went to his head and everything. And like the way he talks about like Iron Man, he got Robert Downey Jr. on that movie as far as he's concerned.
Well, I mean, you're right. He completely overblew what he actually did in that movie. However, I do think that Robert Downey Jr. sucked up all the oxygen from that, so that they made it so Terrence Howard wasn't going to make as much money as he probably could have, because they had to pay Robert Downey Jr. all of the money to keep going.
And he became like I think people like you and I knew that there was a good chance that he'd be good at this, Tony Stark role here and everything. But I don't think anybody truly grasped how amazingly well it would actually do and how he would be so ever linked with that particular character. And I don't even think, Marvel really quite knew what they had on their hands at that point. But once you get to that Iron Man 2 level here and everything, they know what they got in their hands, and they're riding that ticket. They're riding that RDJ ticket. They're not. Terrence Howard's kind of old school, old news at this point. And when you start demanding things and stuff, that's when you're going to get thrown out, especially when you're, against Hollywood's biggest boy at that point.
Yeah, it's true.
But like seeing him here, it's like it's nice, but like he's not doing, over the top stuff, but like he's not really doing anything else either. He's kind of like, and it's not, I don't know that it's particularly his fault. I think his character is a little bit flatly written.
I think that he has a really difficult job in this movie, because they're letting Jackman go full bore, and they're letting all the other actors just act as crazy as you want to. Jake Gyllenhaal, do whatever you want. Terrence Howard is basically having to do what Maria Bello's doing. Only what they give Maria Bello is, listen, you're completely zonked out on pills.
Now go to your bed.
That's totally the perfect way to do that. But they didn't give that to Terrence Howard. So he's basically got to be somewhat of a voice of reason in a very unreasonable situation, with all the actors around him who are not acting reasonably in any way. And so he really has he has to be the most grounded of all these characters. And I don't know if Terrence Howard is capable of playing that, because in real life he's not that.
No, that's not a grounded human being.
No. Everybody talks about with Rain Man that Dustin Hoffman is really great in that movie, but who's really actually great in that movie is Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Like, Tom Cruise has a way harder job in that movie than Dustin Hoffman does.
Dustin Hoffman looks in the sky and says a couple of, stilted phrases, and that's about,
right.
That's it. And it's like, oh, I look at the ground for a little while, look at the sky for a little while. That's about it.
And Tom Cruise is great in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And basically Terrence Howard has to play the Tom Cruise role in this movie. And because he's not a normal, neither is Tom Cruise, but maybe at that time he was. I don't even know.
Well, comparatively.
But he is not a normal person, and so he can't fulfill that role, unfortunately for him.
I feel like the character would have probably worked a little bit more if he was, and again, I don't know that Terrence Howard's going to be playing this guy. If he were like a little bit more sniveling, a little more bargaining, a little bit more, he kind of wanted to tell, but then, but Jackman's character just overpowers him and, makes him stay quiet or something like that. But I can't see Terrence Howard signing off to be dressed down like that.
I don't think that I don't think that's who the character is. I don't think the character was written that way.
No, but I mean, just to get I guess my point is then to do that, to give the character something to do, because as of right now, it's just kind of like he's too flatly written for my taste. I feel like, again, this guy would have either ratted out to his wife or would have tried to stand up to him at least to some degree, but like he very much goes along with it. He rarely, if ever, questions anything that he says. He just kind of rolls along with it. And like, maybe if that was the character, but I don't know that I feel like that's what they've set up in any way.
No, they didn't. I mean, it's not set up from the directing standpoint, the writing standpoint, or the acting standpoint. None of that is there.
He got trumpet though.
He do. Also, it's kind of neat to see the difference between how they're doing, how these two families are doing, because they're doing far better than the Dovers are.
Now that I'm really kind of thinking about it, you're right, because their house is nice. It's set up. It's like, it looks like your traditional home and everything. Their couch there and the piano and all that kind of good stuff. So You're right. I guess I never really quite thought about that, but yeah, the differences between those two houses, these are probably the more, affluent ones than, Keller and his family.
It's the difference of probably like $25,000 to $50,000, how much better they're doing.
It's not better. Yeah, exactly. A little bit more.
But it's a little bit more. And their house is also awful, but in a totally different way.
Yeah,
but it was neat to see. I was like, oh, they're telling a story here. That's really cool. And we got to get to it, man. We got to get to. I couldn't believe it when he showed up in this, and I was like, how did I forget?
Yeah, how do you forget? But crazy.
When David Dastmalchian shows up in this movie, and it's like, oh. Yeah, you're not going to outdo weird if David Dastmalchian's in this. Do whatever you want, Paul Dano and Jake Gyllenhaal. Go right ahead, because we got another guy in here who's literally going to give you the weirdest, creepiest performance anyone has ever seen.
He's just, I don't know what it is about the guy. He's like, and from everything I've seen, he's the nicest human being in the world, which is so awesome that he's just a cool dude. But
I love him.
He's got such a look and a feel to everything that he does, and I'm so glad that he's finally getting, I say finally, but he's continued to get a lot of good work ever since, yes. Dark Knight and everything. But like, we know his name now. Like, he's not just character actor Dave Dastmalchian. Yeah. Now he's like his proper guy.
Hey, that weird guy's in this again.
Yeah. Now people know who this dude is. He's a lead in, small horror films, but lead nevertheless. So like, that's freaking cool. And he's so cool and creepy in this. Everything from right at the little funeral thing there and stuff, with him just petting the little stuffed animal, and you're like, oh my God, like, because that's the moment that you see him for the first time, and you're like, holy crap, I totally forgot he was in this movie. And it's so good. It got like everything from, and again, it's all these like small little details and stuff. And this has got to be all Villeneuve things. Like when you look at like his hands, how his hands have, like cuts and bruises and stuff. It just the unkemptness of the tie when they greet him at the door, and just how everything is just ever so slightly off. And then when he busts through the house, just the crazed mazes and stuff written all over the walls and stuff. Really cool. Just, and like, I remember just sitting in the theater going, what the hell? Where are we at right now? What's going on? And then we get to the totes and stuff. It's like, Jesus. Cause like at this point it feels like 7.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you're going through the totes with the snakes and you're trying to figure out like, what's that all about? What is going on there?
I think Denny hates snakes in real life. I could be wrong. I don't know nothing from it, but based upon the movies that I've seen of his, I'm going to say the guy don't like the snakes.
And when the movie, I'll tell you, when I first saw this movie, I did not put all the pieces together. The second time around, I finally get all the pieces.
It's a little more dense than I think people might give it credit for. Yeah, go on.
So when you realize why he's drawing all these mazes, it's like, oh wow, like that, and he's got the mannequins buried in his backyard, the child mannequins buried in his backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And when you learn what that's about, it's just like, wow, like this movie really is connecting everything. And again, it's part of that third act where you're just like, oh, every person that we've suspected might have something to do with it. It's all connected. It's so great.
Yeah, you go on a roller coaster of things because, like you said, immediately we go, Paul Dano's guilty. We know this. And then about halfway through, you're just like, maybe he's probably still guilty, but like you start to question. You got an eyebrow up, and then when we get your Dave DeSmalchin character in, then it like that brings in yet another little element here, and then you've got mom on the back burner that you're not even quite thinking about. But they've set up these chess pieces all along the way, and just for this
There's also
right
the
measure.
priest with the body in the basement.
Yep, I guess forgot about that one.
And so all of these things are connected, and I hadn't put it the first time I saw it, I hadn't put it all together. It was only this time around, because basically you have to you can only start with, like, to make it all okay in your head. The way you have to tell the story is like this. So there is this man and woman who are married, who are abducting children and killing them.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they're killing these kids is because they think that people aren't faithful enough, that it's like it's a religious thing. Like, oh, we'll give you religion because we're going to take your kids away from you. And so then they abduct this one kid, and that kid is the Paul Dano character.
Right.
And they raise that kid and tell the lie of we are his aunt and uncle. But really what they did was they just abducted this kid from somewhere, and they've been telling the lie of that his parents died in a car crash, even telling Paul Dano's character that. So the reason why he's so messed up is because these two people, when they are molesting and murdering these kids, they're having him help.
Yeah, he's like orchestrating and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Probably bring the kids in like in a spiderweb fashion. One of the kids that they abduct but gets away is the David DeSmalchin character. Then once that happens, the husband goes and says and confesses to a priest who's like, okay, this is beyond awful, so I am going to make sure that you die here.
Yeah, I mean, like, so at first you're just like, and again, well-weaved story here and everything. You think the priest is involved in all of this sort of stuff, and he's like, and
he is because he kills the husband. He kills the crazy old lady's husband,
right? But
like 20 years ago.
But you're kind of okay with it because he finds out, because you know that he knows what he knows,
right? And so then when you learn that, oh, the girls were abducted by the old lady, who is Paul Dano's aunt, who's been raising him since he was a little kid, but not actually his aunt. And it all comes together. And it's just like, what a wonderful way to tell the story of this. But at times it's so subtle that the first time I didn't even see it. I didn't see all of it. I got parts of it, but not the whole thing.
Well, and it was confusing and stuff because, and again, like I agree, like the first time I watched it and we're opening up the totes and stuff like that, it's like, what the hell's going on here?
Right. Yeah. And why does he have the pig's blood all over the children's clothes? And it's because he wanted David DeSmalchin's character wanted to kill all these kids, like had it in him, but didn't do it because he didn't want to be a child murderer.
Yeah.
It's just so involved and so dark. It's such a dark ass movie, man.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in theaters and stuff, and and it was one of those that it ends and you're like, oh, well, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But and again, just setting up all of these spots and stuff, like what a great intense scene where so let's I'll rewind half a second. When on initial viewing and everything, how was the Melissa Leo reveal for you?
I was I basically was like, oh, of course it's her. Of course.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It makes
you're like,
sense. It can only be her, you know.
Mm-hmm. But just that fact that she had that gun around and like, because it was like it felt like I remember like kind of figuring it out like a half a second before the character does.
I didn't figure it out until the movie told me.
Yeah, once just before she turned, I'm go, oh shit, she's in on this, isn't she? And then like turns around and she's got the gun. I'm like, oh, that's when you just lean back in your chair and be like, you've got to be putting me on. This is what we're doing now. Wow. But what a great scene of her just intimidating the crap out of Hugh Jackman, taking him out, making him like start the car, and you're like, what's going on? And then to back, like, it's just, they let it linger and sit there and just ratchet that tension up so hard. And just there, but I will say so many times though, where you're just like, okay, that you could have beat her there, could have beat her there, could have beat her there, could have beat her there. Like there's so many places where you could have just like, I don't care if you're handcuffed. I don't care if you got a little Jesus juice in you. You still could throw a spinning back leg who's going to hit a 60-year-old woman, and then with your two cuffed hands, hacksaw Jim Duggan the ever-living hell out of her face until she's dead. That's how you get out of that situation. You don't just, I'm sorry, she's a little old lady with a gun. You can beat that.
But he thinks that his daughter's in danger. Like he knows his daughter's in danger. It's why, and it's why he's not doing that.
It's one of the smart things too that the movie does that allows you to keep that exact sort of thing to where he doesn't go full bore and do those things because you have that dangling participle of the daughter out there, so you can't kill them lest that information just goes poof into nowhere. Loved her kind of like getting him over the pit and everything, and just like you think she's gonna shoot him, which again, why wouldn't she?
Yeah,
just shoot
I don't know.
I suppose I don't know. She's a real jerk. She's just a real old jerk. Or she's like, I'm gonna bury him alive and stuff. But again, planting those seeds, setting the table early with the little whistle there and everything, just great. And then I love how nice and subtle that, like, you know, it's not them in there screaming and stuff, and like because you wonder. You're like, oh, is he going to get out of this? How could he do it? And like, you would think that he would be screaming. You would think that there might be people around there. But eventually, if a couple of days lapses through and everything, and all he's got is just enough oxygen to barely blow into that thing. And I like how it's like 3 or 4 times before Gyllenhaal really goes, I'm not just making this sound up in my head. Something's going on.
Yeah, that little, and to have that in the movie, to have that little uptick of like, oh, he's actually, he just hurt him. He's getting out of there.
Yeah.
Just to have that little uptick, really, it really kind of cements just how good this movie is, and that Denis Villeneuve understands, like, oh, we can't just end this with infinite sadness. We have to have some hope at the end of this thing, and that's how they do it. But my question for you is, because there's no way that there's no real answer here. It's as Bill Simmons would call it, an unanswerable question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that because once he gets out, once Keller Dover gets out of that hole, he's going to get prosecuted for sure. You can't do that level of damage to another human being and just walk away from it. Do you think that he gets off because it was his son or his daughter? And since he sort of knows what happened to the girls, do you think that he gets off on all charges?
I think they would certainly have some leniency. I don't know that he would get completely off. He would probably do a little bit of time, but I think he'd see his kids grow up.
I think what I think is that he's not going to be able to afford a really good lawyer he can afford an okay lawyer.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of good, like he's got a lot of good stuff on his side.
Right. And
So,
and he has the righteousness of my daughter was kidnapped and he knew something.
yeah, and to a degree, he wasn't wrong.
Right.
Like now, and again, we can all go through and question motives and stuff, but again, in the heat of the moment, in the time with which you're in, again, I can't even fathom. Can't even fathom. So, like for me, I'm just going, who's to say?
Does Jake Gyllenhaal, does he move on after this movie is over? Does he get a raise? Does he become like higher up in the police?
I think so,
force?
Because the police chief did say that, like, just before they thought everything was kind of figured out and everything, that he said that he didn't want to lose him to the Metro PD or something like that. So, like, I think he at least has aspirations to do more and get more and get out of there. And from what they said, from what I kind of read and everything, like he grew up in a boys' home or something, like this character.
Oh.
So, like, that's like he had been in, like, he'd had like a real checkered past and everything and stuff. But that was one of the things that, like, because I want to read more about it and stuff on the interwebs, but yeah, apparently that was. Oh, and also I forgot. I wanted to mention this when you mentioned Paul Dano's weird acting and everything, and like I don't know where he got that from. Paul Dano says he got that from real life.
Huh.
He won't say where or anything, but like he has pulled on like he said that he specifically had been at this point searching out roles like this. He wanted to do things like, and if you look at his, this area when he's doing stuff, it is kind of what he's doing. But he your boy's had a past, I think. I don't know nothing about him. I don't know nothing about that past, but based upon what I've kind of, like the slight little bit I've heard, I'm like, oh, you probably got some real dark shit to pull from, don't you? I don't know nothing, but it sounds like he's got at least a well with which to pull from. So, and hey, it's working so far. I'm a big fan.
Did you recognize the captain in this movie? Jake Gyllenhaal's captain, the one that he keeps telling to F off.
It's one of those things. He's familiar, but I don't know.
He is the other guy running for governor in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Okay.
Yeah, he's sweeping up the state.
There's an actor in this movie that I've met. There's a half decent chance you might have met him. He was a Charlotte guy, Brian Dye, black guy.
Brian Dye, because the other Charlotte guy that I was thinking of is that Rob Trevalier is in this movie.
Oh yeah,
and Rob Trevalier, he's listed as forensics guy. His biggest role is that he was in Ozark. He played the sheriff in Ozark.
Oh, nice.
If there is anything, like he is by far the best actor in Charlotte, and he gets roles all the time. And he really is like the guy in Charlotte. If there's any big role that's even anywhere regional, he gets that job. He's great.
As I'm watching this, the whole thing about this series and stuff is we're really kind of looking over the wild and varied career of Hugh Jackman and stuff like that. Hugh Jackman is getting into, he's about 60 now, right?
Yeah.
Who's taken this guy's place? Like, who else does anything like remotely what Hugh Jackman does?
Well, nobody.
I don't know that guy exists.
It's why he's risen to prominence so hard, is that he can do both the sensitive guy or a role like this. He can be a superhero. He can be a nerd. He does musical theater, but also you could totally believe this guy playing a truck driver. Like all of these things work for him.
Yeah, he's like, it's amazing how you can have like, you can just be like, this handsome specimen and yet still also at the same time be an everyman in a lot of ways.
I think that he's probably the most everyman guy that's working right now, quite honestly. And the fact that he's gotten older just has given him more opportunities to do other roles.
Mm-hmm.
I think that where he was in the original X-Men movie, he probably couldn't get a lot of the roles that he's getting now, just because he's getting more and more everyman with each passing year, because now he's got lines in his face, and he's not, while he's a handsome fella, he's not nearly as handsome as he was when he was 25.
Oh, you get that first Wolverine movie, just this young buck is like, oh man, you understand why he became a big star.
Yeah.
But he does. He's got that kind of that everyman quality that is, but yet still a movie star, and on top of that, your boy can act.
Yeah.
So like you got all of that. Whew.
The person who's closest to him in type and age is Ben Affleck. The problem is that Ben Affleck has there's this really dark quality that he has that Hugh Jackman doesn't have. Like, Hugh Jackman can turn it on, but when he doesn't have that part on, he's just a normal guy. Whereas there's something really dark inside of Ben Affleck that comes out with almost every role he has.
And I think even evidentiary in his directing work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just if you look at all of those things, it's like, yeah, that guy's got a little dark something going on in there.
Yeah, even the Nike movie is that way.
Yeah, gosh, that movie's that's a lot of fun. That one, I forgot how fun that is, especially with those glasses and everything. So good.
Yeah, I like that movie.
All right, let's get down to it. We got to figure out if Prisoners from Denis Villeneuve is art or fart. John?
It's art. The third act alone, this is the reason why the script was on the blacklist, is because the third act of this script is incredible and everything pays off. And, you're kind of sitting through long takes for the first two parts of this movie. Mm-hmm. And it's totally worth your time. This is complete art to me. So for me, it's art, bub.
Yeah. Art all the way. Like the best part is like they build it up right there in the beginning. In the first 15 minutes, you're already off to the races. You learn where you are, what the situation is, and then boom, the girls are gone. Do you ever think high and low while watching this? This time I did, because I'd never really seen.
That's funny. Having only seen High and Low for our show.
Yeah.
I didn't put those two things together. I love High and Low.
I did this time, and I was just like, "Oh, this is kind of like an American High and Low to a degree," and it'd be an interesting double feature where it's like, well, now we're getting, but for real, we'll get to the modern one. We get some revenge. It's really good. They set it up. They set that whole little world there in the first 15 minutes. And then, like you said, we spend the next 2.5 acts just ratcheting it up the entire time and just seeing how tight we can get that. And then once we get to that third act, we just kind of let that bad boy loose, and it just goes off and doesn't stop to the end. And like you said, this movie's like almost 2.5 hours. You probably could lose a little bit of time, but you never really feel like it's dragging. I
do, especially this time, since I've seen it and I know how it ends up. I felt its length this time for sure.
Well, and listen, it's not for nothing. He does have a tendency to have that a little bit in his work. Villeneuve does. So whether it's this or you look at Sicario is a little long and a little ponderous and stuff as well. And Blade Runner's same. So like Arrival, same. And again, I like all of these movies.
Me too. Everything you just mentioned, I like every single one of them.
Those are all good things.
They're just really long.
They have that kind of like, we're just going to get there when we get there, and hopefully you'll be along with us on that trip. And if you're not, well, maybe there's another, crappy movie that you can go see somewhere, because I don't know about you. Anytime that this guy says, hey, I'm going to do something, I've already bought a ticket.
Even the Dune movies. The Dune movies are really long, but great.
Yeah, and again, probably could lose a little bit of time, but still pretty darn good. You're not overall. I'd rather it be long than you take it away from me, I suppose.
Yeah.
So give me that much at least. Well, we are continuing on Hugh Jackman train here, everybody, and next week we are getting into, I guess, I guess this is kind of the culmination of Hugh Jackman in a lot of ways, because we're going sports movie, we're going kind of father figure sort of thing, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of action-y-esque sort of stuff. So I think we're getting kind of the full amalgamation of Hugh Jackman when we talk about 2015's Eddie the Eagle, starring one Hugh Jackman and what's his name? Taron Egerton. I almost forgot. So we'll be checking out Eddie the Eagle next week. You saw that one, right?
I have. I've seen it.
Okay, good. I don't know. I think Bruce was the one who may not have seen that. So we'll check all that out here. I mean, when you think Hugh Jackman, you think skiing, right? I do.
I do. Especially British skiing, British high jumping.
Makes
That's
nothing.
what I think immediately Hugh Jackman.
I can't wait till we talk about the ultimate scene that I just know Sean loved more than anything, of him just going down the hill with a cigarette in his mouth. I can't wait to talk about that.
Of course, that's my favorite scene.
We'll talk about all of that and more next week. In the meantime, where can we find more of our stuff on the internet?
Well, if you're a Patreon member, I've got some good news for you, because I've been working behind the scenes, making a new show called Shanzi Lake Spaceships. And I'm going to put together, here's the deal, is it's not going to drop right away. Cause I want to put 10 episodes together before I ever put it out, because knowing me, knowing the way my life works, I need about 3 months of go before I put something out, because I don't want to miss a week. So check that out. If you're a Patreon member, each week we're going to be reviewing a movie that has spaceships in it. Sci-fi. It's called Shanzi Lake Spaceships. Check it out.
That's sci-fi, not science documentaries. This is science fiction. These are things that we're making up. These aren't real.
Fiction.
Forbidden Planet, not a documentary. Keep it in mind. And of course, check out Star Wars 30 Questions. We are on episode 7 of The Acolyte here. And I don't know what you know about Star Wars, but The Acolyte is a show that's involved with Star Wars, and it's on the television. And we review that show. Well, we don't review the show. We ask 30 questions of it every single week. Those questions could be everything from, like, what's a Wookiee's underwear like, to, actual plot things in the show. So check it out over at Star Wars 30 Questions, wherever you find finer podcasts. That will do it for this week, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking Eddie the Eagle from 2015 for the absent Bruce Leslie. Sweet Sean's a Kovac from the internet. I'm Adam Portress, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.